Hey everybody, Kimberly Young here, and I have to be honest, as someone who loves entrepreneurship, investing, learning about what makes successful people tick, and is not completely opposed to a great dramatic reality show, I find Elon Musk's life to be very intriguing. So when I found out that there was a biography on Elon Musk all the way from childhood to pretty much current day, I was like, I've got to get my hands on that. Much to my surprise, after not reading all the description on the Amazon listing, I did not realize it was going to be 670 pages, 95 chapters long. But I told myself I'm going to read this book. Even if I only read one chapter a day, I can finish the book in about 3 months. But I stuck with it, and I actually finished the book in less than 4 weeks. So proud of myself, thanks to winter break. So this video is not going to dive into his dramatic mood swings. It's not going to dive into how aggressive he is to his employees or why he has 11 children. But instead, I'm going to talk about why I believe he has become the richest man in the world. First, I just want to talk about some of the character traits that Elon possesses that I believe are huge contributing factors to him being so successful. First of all, is just hard work and dedication. Elon's work ethic is beyond anything I've ever seen or heard about before. It is not unusual for his employees to find him sleeping under his desk, and I'm talking sleeping on the floor with just maybe a pillow, because he will stay at these companies for days at a time in order to make sure they are successful. He is dedicated to his companies because of specific missions, and I'm going to talk more about those missions in a little bit. Second, Elon embraces risks. He knows if he is not constantly taking risks, he will not continue moving forward in these companies. He takes risks on that most people would cringe or run away screaming like a little kid. In fact, in the last chapter of his book, it talks about how some regulatory agencies were very apprehensive about the Starship launch. And Elon said, "This is how civilizations decline. They quit taking risks." So the big question is, was the first Starship launch successful? And unfortunately, after about 3.5 minutes and some issues that they were seeing, Elon had to make the call to blow up the Starship over the ocean. So did he make a mistake in making these risks? Well, let's see what he had to say about it. On page 611, so the last chapter of the book, he said, "We don't want to design to eliminate every risk. Otherwise, we will never get anywhere." And he and the team had already talked about how even though the first launch would probably not be completely successful, and even though it was not going into orbit, it would still help them to step forward and to move towards success. So let's find out what the reaction of Elon and his team were after the Starship exploded. Nevertheless, it had exploded. Most of the public would consider it a flaming failure. And for a moment, as he stared at the monitor, Musk seemed subdued. But the rest of the control room began applauding. They were jubilant at what they had achieved and what they had learned. Musk finally stood up, put his hands above his head, and turned to the room. "Nicely done, guys," he said. "Success. Our goal was to get clear of the pad and explode out of sight, and we did. There's too much that can go wrong to get into orbit the first time. This is an awesome day." And that brings me to the third character trait that I really believe has helped Elon to be so successful, and that's the fact that he's not a perfectionist. While he is insanely brilliant and he has so many incredible ideas, and I know that we would never have any of these things if it was all up to me and my brains, he knows that perfectionism is going to stop him from moving forward, and he's not going to let that barrier prevent technology from continuing to advance. The rest of this video, I'm going to break out 4 different categories that I really want to highlight how Elon approaches those. First, it's his ideas. Second, innovation. Third, the way that he treats his employees. And fourth is going to be focused on cost-saving initiatives. I don't think that Elon Musk will ever stop amazing us with his ideas. But what really intrigues me is that with each one of his companies, there is an underlining drive, this mission that he's working towards. Overall, it is to preserve humanity. We see this with Tesla as he wants to decrease the carbon footprint. We see this with SpaceX as he's hoping to colonize Mars one day. We see this with Neuralink. He's literally trying to give sight to the blind and allow the paralyzed to walk again. With Twitter, he is passionate about freedom of speech. With his XAI company, we see that he is trying to really focus in on allowing humans to be in control of computers and not the opposite effect. And along with all these missions, what's really incredible to me is that each time he started one of these companies, he was not looking at it as a way to make a bunch of money. Now, it's easy for us to look at him and say, well, yeah, he's got hundreds of billions of dollars. I mean, what does he care? But even from the very beginning, when he didn't have a lot of money, he was still not focused on the fact that these companies were going to be insanely profitable. He was focused on his mission. How interesting that the richest man in the world all along has been more focused on preserving humanity and advancing technology than making money. I think we could talk for hours, if not days, about how innovative Elon Musk is. He was quoted saying, "If conventional thinking makes your mission impossible, then unconventional thinking is necessary." And what a great way of thinking for someone who is constantly coming up with ways to advance technology. Elon's ability to pivot when plan A is not working correctly is unbelievable. And we see this even with launching rocket ships. Would you believe that a lot of inspiration for Elon's products actually came from the toy industry? So they would actually look at little toy cars when it came to things like designing the Cybertruck. So that's where Elon had the idea to make the truck one giant piece of stainless steel. Instead of doing the method that they were trying, which was resulting in a lot of leaks and things, once he looked at the car and said, you know what? This little toy car is made out of one piece of metal. Can we do that for a Cybertruck? That shifted everything and made the process go much smoother. Talking about the Cybertruck, Elon was quoted saying, "So it went from something that was a horrible nightmare to something that was crazy cheap and easy and fast." Elon actually saw value in getting inspiration from toy companies. And he said they have to produce things very quickly and cheaply without flaws and manufacture them all by Christmas, or there will be sad faces. When it comes to how Elon selects and treats his employees, it can be a bit controversial. He is not always what most of us would call kind to his employees, even though his view is this: by trying to be nice to people, you're actually not being nice to the dozens of other people who are doing their jobs as well and will get hurt if I don't fix the problem spots. We see as Elon purchased Twitter and cut back employees by the thousands, he was looking for three main character traits: excellence, trustworthy, and driven. We know one thing about Elon is he does not mess around when it comes to employees slacking. Musk is known for setting what appears to be unachievable deadlines for his employees. He says if we don't accelerate, we are not going to achieve much in our lifetimes. When it came to working on the Cybertruck prototype, Elon wanted them to have it ready in 3 months when the typical deadline should have been 9 months. The employees told Musk there was absolutely no way, we can't do this. And he said, we will do this. His partner said it forced the team to come together and work 24/7 and rally around that date. We also see this with Elon's company, Neuralink. Whenever he gave his engineers what was thought to be a totally impossible deadline, here's what the book tells us. They went through the usual stages of post-Musk stress disorder: baffled, then angry, then anxious. But within a week, they got to the stage of being intrigued because the new approach might actually work. Once it did, one of the engineers stated, "We thought this was impossible, but now we're actually pretty stoked about it." We see this trend with Elon. He pushes his employees so hard, but it does allow them to accomplish much more than most any other company. So while the way that he treats his employees may be quite controversial and very different than my approach as a manager, he definitely gets the job done. Like any great business owner, Elon Musk is really good at cutting costs where he can. However, he is not foreign to the idea of spending millions of dollars where needed. But he has a great philosophy called delete, delete, delete. This is where he encourages his employees to focus on deleting any extra costs that are unnecessary and deleting any extra steps in a process that are unnecessary. He says if you don't have to add back at least 10% of what you deleted to make everything work well, then you did not delete enough. And this has really helped him to be able to spend much less on his products and make the product come out much quicker. It really cuts down on those deadlines. One thing that Elon did that I thought was a fantastic and innovative approach to cutting costs was when he was building his space shuttles. He was like, wait a second, why does this engine cost so much? Why does this unit cost so much? Why does this part cost so much? He says, we get these parts for our cars, we get these parts for other things that are so much less expensive. So why are we going to companies to purchase these that they are only focused on selling rocket parts? Instead, let's go to companies that manufacture car parts and find a way to adapt those to our space shuttles. And that cut costs like you would not believe. We're not just talking about tens of thousands, we're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars difference, because those companies that are specifically making parts for space shuttles are charging so much extra than the companies that are making those same parts for vehicles. So I thought that was super innovative. Another really interesting thing that Elon has in place is something called an idiot index. So, the idiot index he references multiple times. This is where the ratio of total cost of a component to the cost of its raw materials are compared. If the ratio is too high, then you're an idiot. Hey, this is Elon's words, not mine, so don't get offended by me. There are so many fantastic lessons in life and in business that I have learned from reading this biography. So I could go on and on. And to be honest, I really did not know much about Elon going into this book. And I always kind of felt like I was very intrigued by him, but very cautious at his behavior as well. And as I read the entire book, I still felt kind of in the middle. Do I love him? Do I hate him? I really don't know. My heart goes out to him and all of the challenges that he's faced. So, on the very last page of the book, the author sums up his opinion and really my opinion really well. Do the audacious and hubris that drive him to attempt epic feats excuse his bad behavior, his callousness, his recklessness? The answer is no, of course not. One can admire a person's good traits and decry the bad ones, but it's also important to understand how the strands are woven together, sometimes tightly. It can be hard to remove the dark ones without unraveling the whole cloth. As Shakespeare teaches us, all heroes have flaws, some tragic, some conquered, and those we cast as villains can be complex. Even the best people, he wrote, are molded out of faults. So I'll just leave it at that.